take every opportunity in your community to speak in a Christian school, speak in a Christian college, do chapel, do a funeral for somebody locally, be a part of the social community, the social, whatever way you can, whether it's Starbucks or whether your kids are playing, baseball or whatever it is. Let people meet you and hear your wisdom and your counsel and see the graciousness of your attitude. Just get as much exposure as you can. It's not just as simple as, putting an ad in the paper and competing with everybody else who puts an ad in the paper to get people to come to your deal. And it really isn't about having some well-known personality or some rock and roll group to attract people. You're the key to developing future leadership. The visiting musician won't do that. The visiting preacher won't do that. The future of your church is dependent on the strength of its leadership, and you are the guy that's going to attract them. So any way that you can, any opportunity that you can, you need to take that opportunity. If there is a local Christian college, or if there's some kind of a student ministry going on somewhere, or whatever it is, just get to know all that stuff and stick your nose in there, and like the camel in the tent, and say, I'm available. I'd love to come and teach or speak, or just get some exposure and let people know who you are. That's what I was saying to Todd. The big event deal doesn't help you. It's a splash, but it's not what you need. What you need is for the people in that community to be drawn to you. And it's not likely going to be marginal people that you would get in a newspaper ad or a door-to-door flyer. It's going to be people who love what you love and are serious about that. So how do you get to those people? One other way to do it, and I've been doing this, and I would encourage you guys, is to let me do a radio tag for the 1 minute following the Race to You broadcast. And I would share that with you. I just did one where I took 30 seconds, and our graduate who has a church in the area took the final 30 seconds. And I just introduced him, and then he took it from there. You can tag Grace to You, and that in that area will give you some exposure to the people who are going to say, wow, you mean something. And it started out with, I want to introduce you to so-and-so. I've worked with him for many years. He's on our staff. He's now pastoring such and such a church. I'm excited about this. Just want to let you know about it. And anything like that can give you some exposure to the kind of people. It's about your niche. Just a little sort of support for that. For years, Thomas Nelson has been trying to figure out how to make people who don't normally care about John MacArthur buy his books. And I told him, you guys are wasting your time. You're wasting your time. I'm not Max Lucado. I'm not going to entertain marginally committed people. I'm not going to do that. It took them years to figure out finally that you can't sell my books in Costco. That's not my people. I'm not going to pick up 2 pair of jeans and a MacArthur book. So you got to know your market, and you're trying to feed the flock of God, and the flock of God is in your area. There's a flock of God in your area that are frustrated and unfed and disappointed, and you got to find ways to identify who they are. So you need to move around into the circles that it might even be that your wife goes to Bible study fellowship, if there's one of those there, with all of its failures, and it's a terrible aversion to doctrine. Whatever it is that you can do to let people know you're there, and you'll begin to draw the people who hunger for the truth. But as I said, anything we can do to help, if it would help you, you may be even creative. If you want a couple of minutes from me that you can throw on your website, I'd be glad to do that for you. Anything. Okay? But don't have the illusion that you're going to go in and all of a sudden all the non-believers in Redlands are going to come rushing into your church. That's not going to happen. And that's not what you want anyway, because then you got them all there and you feel like you got to keep them there. And so how are you going to keep them there? You're not equipped to do that. And you're not called to do that. So that's the failure. That is the failure of all these church marketing strategies. They're trying to make a church of unconverted people. I'll tell you an interesting thing. Jesse's down there. I'm going to talk about Jesse for a minute. Jesse, you've been at Grace Church how long?
Been attending for 10.5 years.
And you've been on staff?
About 6.
And you graduated from the University of New Mexico?
Yep.
Did you know Austin Duncan when you were there?
We met right after I graduated.
And were you a Calvary Chapel guy?
Yeah.
Skip Heitzig?
Yep.
And you and Austin came to seminary. Did you go through together?
I came out 3 or 4 years before he did. We were roommates before seminary, then I came out. Well, he got his undergrad and then came out afterwards.
So in recent weeks, the church, I think that church at one time probably had 2,500 people.
I think it maxed at about 3,500.
Okay, we're talking a church of 3,500 in the Washington, D.C. area. And they were looking for a pastor. And I don't know, why did you send them an application? I know you've sent applications a lot of places, but
Yeah,
you've been trying to get out from under me for...
It sounds weird when it's said out loud. Prince Small is about 45 minutes from there, and then Daniel Gillespie has family that's there, and the two of them both encouraged me to send him.
So he sends an application. Jesse's been on our staff for 6 years. How old are you?
35.
35. He's never been a senior pastor, and this is a huge church. It's an old church, been there forever, and they pick his name out of 100 applications. 100 applications, and I talked to the elder board, and I said, why you pick Jesse Johnson's name? And they said, out of 100 applications, he was the only person that said he wanted to come and serve the church. Right?
Yeah.
The only guy who put the word serve in his application. Out of 100 people. And they've had it with type A entrepreneurial whiz kids, right? So that process right now is so far down the road that you're going back there to in January? Or?
Yeah, I was there last weekend and preached to the elders and staff and their wives, and then I go back and preach a couple times in January.
And then the congregation votes?
Congregation votes January 15th.
And so here's a guy who wasn't even preaching at Grace Church except on occasion. And this door has opened to him because he said he wanted to come and serve the church. Shepherd the people. And Jesse told me that the other day that the staff is fearful, paranoia, and they kept asking him questions, are you a team player, are you a team player, because they're tired of being beaten up. The prior pastor made a public statement that it was essential to leadership to periodically fire 10% of your staff, just so you let them know that if they don't perform, they're going to be disciplined. As a leadership principle.
Yeah, he tweeted that.
Oh, he tweeted that. Yeah, and he tweeted himself right out of town. Yeah, fear is a great way to develop loyalty, isn't it, Michael? So I'm just telling you, God's people are out there and they're hungry for a shepherd and somebody to care for their souls and to provide them leadership. The only difference between that church, where Jesse's going with that kind of group of people, and the churches where you're going, is that the people are already collected in that place. They're not yet collected where you are, but they're there. And your vision has to include letting people who love the Word of God know that you're there. And then, of course, you've got to deliver the goods when they show up, right? You'll all do that as well.
Other questions?
I told Jesse that if they didn't like him in a year, I'd take him back. That's very important to us.
Could you share some practical illustrations through your ministry of how you struck a balance between being patient and long-suffering with the issues in the church and deciding when you need to confront them and bring them up?
I have never acted as fast as Lance wants me to act. Is that true?
Absolutely true.
You come walking in my office and say, John, you have to act on this today. You have to do this. You cannot let this go on. You've got to bring this to an end. You've got to confront this. Remember that speech?
Yeah, but I was only 25 then.
Okay. We got people. We can't have carnage around here. We can't have dead bodies lying all over the place. There's a way to get there. So I finally said, the only way you're going to learn this, Lance, is to go to Arkansas. And you're the guy who's going to have to face the music, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
did you develop a little patience down there?
More than I could ever imagine.
I don't know the answer to that. Anything that threatens the health of the church, I would act on very fast. But some kind of a deviation, some kind of a mistake, some kind of an unwitting error, some kind of weakness in leadership, or in the way something was done, I would tend to be very, very patient. A lot of it would have to do with the potential damage it could do or the intent. You know, if you're, I say this, and I've said this for years, if you have somebody who's disloyal, get rid of them. And the faster the better, because they can't contain their disloyalty. And they will sow as much discord as they possibly can. It's the only way they justify their attitudes. It's the only way they can continue to be critical, negative, non-supportive, and feel good about it, is to sell it. So where you find disloyalty in leadership, you can say, well, that's hard to do because it's going to be painful. Well, it's going to be more painful the longer you wait. Disloyalty is intolerable. And the way you generate loyalty is by being relentlessly loyal to the people around you. And that's where you exercise your patience. I can't ask anybody to be loyal to me or loyal to our church or loyal to our leadership if I'm not completely loyal to them. I am the last guy that you want to come to in our church to criticize a staff member. I'm the last person you want to come to do that, because I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to believe it. And you're going to have to make a fairly large case. As a result of that, I will tell you this, there may be a somewhat of a downside in this, but people don't come to me to complain about other staff members. And while I may miss some things, the message that I'm communicating to the staff is that this is a safe place and that I'm loyal to them. And it's going to have to reach epic proportions before I'm going to jump in. So you want to be very patient with the people for whom the people you need the most. And if they can't fail, they can't succeed. Nobody can succeed who can't fail, because you don't learn how. And if you jump in all the time and fix everything and override everything, you're going to do it all. They don't grow, right? And that's true in any area. So I think your patience is exhibited on those things that are not, if a guy started teaching something against the deity of Christ, or if he, we had a woman running around the church a couple of weeks ago saying I was part of a gang rape that happened at Grace Church, and we got a restraining order against her, and she's a few bricks short of a load for sure. But this was a weird deal. So there's some things that arise to the level where you just act fast. A staff member in an immoral relationship, somebody lying, somebody cheating. I found out a staff member had completely falsified his application, said he graduated from a school he'd never gone to. Things like that, those are things to deal with immediately. But the weaknesses, the general difficulties, you're very patient with leadership. As long as you understand that these are the normal foibles. We all make mistakes. I've made many of them through the years, and The sign of a good leader is he makes good second decisions. Bad leaders make one decision and then defend it forever because their ego's involved. Good leaders make good second decisions, say I'm wrong, and change it as fast as they can. That is a